Well, congratulations getting through to the final. You mentioned a couple of weeks ago you're looking to get more control on the pitch. Against Aberdeen we've seen the central midfielders come a little bit deeper to try and help with that. How important is that balance between the control but also giving you the attacking opportunities that we've seen throughout the game?
Yeah, if you get too many in front of the ball and you give it away, the other team's midfield can quickly get at your two centre backs. So it's important that you have different lines in your team without getting too technical. You need to have not everybody on the same line in front of the ball. So midfielders are asked to come down and face forward and pass and run. And I think that's how we scored with Ryan Jack. It's how we scored at Dundee United as well. So I'm pleased. I think if you look at most football teams build that way. And again, it was a terrific game on a very difficult pitch at the weekend, and I'm delighted that we've got through to the final. I thought that Aberdeen played well in the game as well, so fair credit to Jim and his team. But obviously, I felt we were the stronger team, and I'm delighted that we've made it through.
Michael, can I ask for an update on Kemar Roof, who came off with an injury?
Yeah, he won't be available for this game and probably this weekend as well. It's a real sore one. He's been away and he's had the scan. He's going to see somebody else just to get the second opinion on it. It's an injury he's had on the other side previously, but it's not a break in terms of dislocation. So there's a bit of a separation at the top here that it just needs to take its time. And for some people it's less time, and some other people it's more. So it's just how we are, or how Kemar feels in the coming weeks and days. It's a huge disappointment for him, for the fans and for his teammates as well, because he's not just such a good player on the pitch, he's very important around the building. He's one of the more senior players and one of the more vocal ones.
You've been very unlucky, hasn't you, with injuries since he's came here?
The club this season has been very unfortunate with injuries on the whole. So if you look at Kem's situation as well, that's just one of a number of players that have not enabled us to have some consistency in selection. In fairness, in the 6 or 7 games since I've come back, I've tried to settle things down and pick pretty much a core 6 or 7 players in every game to give us that consistency, because I think that will breed obviously confidence in playing and the relationships on the pitch, and it's something that this season has not been ideal for myself or the previous manager.
On the theme of injuries, anybody coming back for the game tomorrow night?
No, it'll be the same squad that went for the weekend. James Sands will come back into the squad now.
Sure, that's still looking for the weekend.
Yeah, we're very, very hopeful for the weekend. Well, I don't want to rush him for couple of reasons. The pitch for training this morning, we're waiting for it to thaw out, the undersoil heating, but still really hard, and when you've had a calf stroke ankle injury, it's not ideal surface, and obviously tomorrow night's surface is not ideal for that either, just on the artificial, and obviously the cup game at the weekend's another big game for us.
What do you make of an artificial pitch in the Premiership?
I prefer to not have them. But a lot of the generation of younger players now have come through playing on AstroTurfs in academies or via school football anyway, so it's more the older generation that moans about it. Ideally you wouldn't have it, but I understand why we do in Scotland as well, with the weather and the finances involved in the league. It's something that I try not to make a big thing about. It's just we just want to play the games. Obviously, Kilmarnock's home form of late, 1 defeat in 9 is very, very good. So whether you want to read anything into that, because the 1 defeat was against the other team that play on artificial surface. So it does go to the team that train and play on it every day for sure. But no excuses. We need to go there and play. You know, it's going to be a slightly better, truer surface than the one we played on Sunday evening.
Are there any other players you won't select because of the pitch?
1 or 2 just from the weekend. You'd think, well, playing 120 minutes, maybe we naturally rotate the squad. So we had some key players that came on in the game at the weekend and did well, that are probably looking at me thinking, come on Gaffer, when's my chance to show that I can have a big impact in the season? And it's important I pick and choose the moments. If that isn't tomorrow night, then it certainly will be on Saturday evening.
You've been linked with Morgan Whittaker today. Some saying a bid, something genuine interest. Can you offer some clarity?
He's a player that we know. I think he's a good player. There's no update on that yet. And I think, to be fair, he's just come back off loan to his parent club. And obviously that's because his parent club think he's done very well. So he's Swansea's player, but he's certainly a player that I'm aware of. from obviously working down south and knowing his background. I think he's a good player.
Is that a position that's up there with your priorities to reinforce?
Yeah, I think we're looking at all the areas, but obviously we want to bring more goals into the club. It's, you know, we've had injuries in the front line with obviously Antonio and Kamal not being fit since I've come back into the club. Rabbi Matondo's got an ongoing problem with his knee, so he's not been available the last few games. And Alfredo has a contract situation, so does Ryan Kent. So it's certainly an area I'm looking at, whether it's this window or the summer, to make sure that we're strong, because we need goal scorers in the building.
Any update on their contract situations?
No update at the moment. No.
Is there any update on possible move for Todd Cantwell? We spoke last week. You said that player interested in anything moving closer. Do you know?
Listen, there's no update right now, but I'm really pleased with the way things are moving. So I suppose no news doesn't mean bad news. You know, everyone's on the same line. Everyone's moving in the right direction. That's not specifically talking about that player. That's just in general in this window. What we're trying to do, I believe that we're moving in the right direction towards it.
You as a manager, do you want to get these players in as soon as possible, no matter the cost, the repercussions, or is it more longer term? You're looking, perhaps if we wait an extra week, 2 weeks, right to the end of the window, we might get the player that we want. Is that the way you look at it?
I don't want any short-term gaps. So for me, it's bringing players in that I think can have a big impact moving forward. There's ongoing discussions about players that are out of contract. So therefore, you're looking at what the squad's going to look like 2023, 2024 and onwards. And I think in the past, we've made some key recruitment that's still in the team now and that's been very successful. It's important whatever decisions we make are the right ones, and so naturally I'm a little bit fussy at times in terms of that person, and obviously there's a lot of things that, you can be where you want with the right player, identify them, and then the discussions have to happen between the clubs and agents, and all that takes longer than what a coach would like naturally. But at the moment, all of the stuff I'm hearing behind the scenes, I'm the one closest to it. I'm happy with the work that we're doing.
Just wanted to quickly ask you about your comments after the game on Sunday. You said that there was a bit of anxiousness in your team, sometimes at AMS. Have you had any chance to look at that more, or perhaps even correct that on the training park?
Not since the weekend, obviously, because we had a recovery. Today's a second day recovery, another big game off the back of an AstroTurf. It's more things that we have to talk about, how we deal with certain moments and what we need from certain players in the team at different times. And as I say, we've had a lack of consistency in the starting 11, so there's been a lack of strong voices. Connor Golson missed large parts of the season. Him and Ben Davies' partnership is now bearing fruit. John Lundstrom has probably been the one mainstay of the leadership group in the team this year, along with James Tavernier. So the more we keep them players together, I think that will bring the glue between my ideas and how we need to behave on the pitch at certain times.
Mike, let's go back to recruitment. Are you hopeful that you'd get somebody in by the weekend, or?
No, there's no timeline on it, if I'm honest, but by the end of this window, we'll have either done the business we want to do or it will happen in the summer. But I'm very, very confident that before long, you'll hear some news of new signings.
Just on Kamar Roof, I know you were saying, given the description, it wasn't a break, but in terms of a timescale of that, is that weeks, not months kind of thing? I know you were saying he's off for another scan, it depends how he reacts, but... It's
up in the air at the moment. It's how Kem reacts to it in terms of the pain and then what the surgeon actually thinks he can do in the short period, the short term now. And some players it's been weeks, others months. That's the feedback I've been given by the physios.
Okay. Just wanted to speak to you a little bit about Borna Barisic. I know I'm sure you'll tell me you don't pay attention to any of this stuff, and probably rightly so, but during the game on Sunday his name was trending on Twitter. Such was kind of the discussion around his performances. What have you made of his performances since obviously you returned? He was integral in that title winning season, but since you've returned to the club,
he's been essential to the balance across the park in terms of giving us that balance on the left. I still think you'll go a long way to find a better left-footed player in the attack in terms of his crossing and his delivery. We've switched off as a team in that moment of the weekend. We recovered and won the game. It's gone. We move forward. Borna's been outstanding for this football club. Me and his relationship is very strong, and it will continue to be moving forward.
Just on Kamara, obviously with that injury, does that change your priorities in the transfer window? But if there were injuries, or do you still have a very clear idea in your mind about what you want?
Yeah, I've a really clear mind of where we want this window and the next one to look like. So when we return for pre-season at the start of July, I've got a real clean idea of how I want this squad to look. It's not all going to work in one window, where I want to take the team and evolve it over the next 12 to 18 months. I've got to be careful to make sure that I'm here. And so I've got a good job in the interim. You can't look too far forward. I think January is notoriously a difficult month. Sometimes you get some things fixed up that are going to become permanent in the summer. Sometimes you can get things done now. What I don't want to do is rush for a short-term gap that don't take Rangers Football Club nowhere in the longer term. This is about building and probably having a 25% turnover of this squad over the next 2 to 3 windows to make us really strong. That 25% that come in have to hit the ground running.
Michael, you spoke a little bit about the pursuit of Todd Cantwell there. I remember after the Dundee United game, I asked you about Tom Davies. You said that's a player you like as well. Has there been any update in chasing him at all?
There was no interest on our side towards Tom. There has been no talk about Tom. You caught me on the hop that day, and I said a couple of nice things about him because he's a young British player that I saw coming through as a young player, and I'm pleased to see his progress. He plays for a fantastic football club, and I think that's where he's going to be. He's not going to be a Rangers player in the future.
Another Tom that you've got here, Tom Lawrence. I've seen a TikTok in the last week of him doing some individual training with what looked like a private coach. Can you have a little update on his fitness and how close he is to making a return?
Yeah, he had a slight setback and he went away to get an opinion. The opinion was, okay, let's see how things are going. There's some things he can do at this stage that someone that had that injury probably shouldn't be able to do. And he's had a bit of discomfort at other times in areas that he shouldn't. So it slowly does it at the moment, and there's not really much more to say than that. He's still not back with the group, and we're just going to assess as we go whether we need to... how he feels, whether he can then crank up and start working with the group, which will see a quick return, or it doesn't go to plan and we have to look at an alternative.
Any sort of approximate timescale on that at all?
No, unfortunately not. It's a disappointment for Tom and myself, but it's a reality of coming back from an injury. You know, we've been able to bring some players back a lot quicker, i.e. Ben Davis, John Souttar and Connor Goldson a lot quicker than planned, and then one like Tom is just dragging on a little bit longer.
Michael, you said there it could be weeks or months with Kilmarnock. Will you get clarity after the specialist has seen him, or is it going to be something after the week?
No, I'm looking for a quick diagnosis to that. That's why Ken's been away seeing people to get it. We've obviously had the x-ray back. By the time I sit in front of you guys next, I'll try to get some sort of clearer understanding of where we're at, because I think that's important. I think, obviously Ken's an important player for the team, and it's important that people know where we are with him.
You've mentioned how big an impact it was losing Steve Davis. I think you said you want him to play a big role. Is that a skill set that you think you can cover in-house between now and the summer, or is that a priority you might look to bring someone in?
Well, I think you've seen in the last few weeks between John Lundstrom, Glenn Kamara and Ryan Jack, we've rotated. That's been for different issues they've had. Now they've got to fight it out because they're all in a good place. And we've rotated a little bit between Malik and Scott Arfield, and at times we've played 2 in midfield and 1 slightly further. So everyone's got a real key, they know where they stand. So my job is actually to stand them next to each other outside so they can look at each other in the eyes and fight for the shirt. That's it. And so I don't feel that we're going to need to bring someone in right now to replace Stephen Davis and what he brought to this squad, because what he brought was huge. You're not able to replace it. He's a player that's able to control the speed of the game. He's a player that's hugely experienced. He's a player that everyone listens to in the dressing room. So I'm not just going to be able to replace that with someone coming outside straight away. But by the end of this window and by the end of the summer window, I think you'll see a player come in of that type. And then that player will have to, hopefully over time, do what Davo does. But let's not rule Stephen Davis out yet. He's had the operation, he's started his rehab, and he's got that look in his eyes. So let's see.
Hi, good afternoon, Michael. I wanted to ask you a wee bit about Ryan Kent. Obviously, you've answered the contract situation, but it's more on his performance on Sunday. I thought that was the best all-round complete performance, certainly under your tenure, but certainly in a wee while under just in a Rangers shirt. He seems to be really thriving, coming inside quite a lot, picking the ball up, centrally driving, but he's been taking a lot more shots and getting a lot more involved, taking a lot more responsibility. How happy are you with him And is he now getting towards the kind of standards that you are hoping and expecting from him?
On a personal level, I'm delighted with him in terms of his football. He's never in doubt in terms of his effort and energy, even when some of the magic might not be there on time to time. He never shirks in terms of his work ethic. I think at the moment he's able to cause a lot of disruption to teams because they're unsure of where he's going to be on the pitch, and I've been really happy with him. It's another strong performance, still running hard after 120 minutes, so I think Ryan can be pleased with his form at the moment.
Good afternoon, Michael. With the forward situation as it is at the moment, are we likely to see maybe opportunities afforded to some of the young lads in the B team, like Robbie Ure, Zach Loughley's perhaps in the squad?
Well, they're playing a game this afternoon here at the training ground, so it's a good time for one of them to play well.
And there's a bit of noise last week about Phil Hollander possibly moving on. Is there any truth in that? I know you said he's recovering, he's in his rehab at the moment, but is he likely to perhaps move on this window?
That's news to me. He's a player that I like, Phil. He's a player that I like, and he's a man that I like, and he's one that when you come back in the building and see that he's on the crutches and now the crutches are disappearing, you start thinking, how far away is he? So there's no news on that at the minute, but yeah, I've not heard that rumour.
Hi Michael, you've mentioned a few times already that in terms of your recruitment you're looking to kind of build the Rangers for the future. I was just wondering, have you had the chance to really settle in terms of perhaps bringing your own recruitment strategy, or are you perhaps looking at inspiration from previous successes such as the acquisition of Calvin Bassey and of course the development of Nathan Patterson?
Yeah, well, I was having this conversation a few days ago. If you're a Premier League team with the unlimited millions that they have there, we had an ideal scenario probably a year, 18 months ago, where we had Calvin fighting out with Borna and we had Nathan fighting out with Tav. But where we're situated in the world and the food chain of football, we obviously sell those players for really good money, and then you have to start the conveyor belt again. And I think we're seeing that with Adam Devine, who I thought came on and did well again at the weekend. In terms of the recruitment strategy, I know the recruitment strategy at this club, and it's something that I believe in. So it was something that I was heavily involved in before. If you think some of the players we recruited and where they come from, it was clear that there was a connection between the coaching staff and those players, and I think that's important. You can't have recruitment staff pushing people through a door. You have to have the coaching staff at the door wide open with a smile and accepting the players. And hopefully as we recruit a player, you can see where they're going to fit in the way that we play and the squad, because certainly as a coach, I like to recruit people for specific roles because, as I say, I like people to know, have real clarity in where they're going to play and the areas I think they can help us, but also the areas they can develop. And it's getting that lovely mix between now and future in terms of, I don't want any fillers, I want leaders now and people that I think can go on and be real top players for this club moving forward.
Nick, can I quickly ask Michael, what sort of tests do you expect tomorrow night?
Really tough test. I know Derek well is a good guy, and the Aberdeen battles were between our teams were really tough games. He's done a good job at Kilmarnock, obviously getting them back up. Got a lot of familiar faces in their squad of players that have got good experience in this league. They've lost 1-9 at home, and as I said, that game was against Livingston. It was on the Astro. They've beaten every team that I've beaten or we've beaten since I've come back in. So game on, should be a good game. We need to go for 3 points, not 1. And I'm sure they're feeling the same after what was a really good performance at Hampden at the weekend. So I'm sure although they were disappointed, that will give them a lot of confidence for the remainder of the season.